Welcome to the Sunday Night Chat. My name's Mike. For those of you who haven't been here before, whew, I'm sweating. I was just on the bicycle. They're building a structure behind the building here, so we don't have our parking, and that's going to be for like a year. So I'm parking the van over at the shop, which is a pretty secure location. It's got a gate, secluded gate, and all that good stuff. So it's probably more secure there than it was here. Freak somebody out. Emptying the pockets here so I can sit here comfortably. Let's see. Perfect. Noon on my 25-year-old Seiko SKX173. Alright, so it's Saturday. I might release this today, a day early. If not, you're seeing this tomorrow. You might see it now. You're definitely seeing it right now, whatever day it is that you're watching this. I'm like Mr. Rogers today. Oh, wait. You ever heard the old saying, waiting for the other shoe to drop? That comes from the people living in those apartments, like the tenement buildings, like in New York, 100 plus years ago, and living on top of one another, and the old man would come home and take one shoe off and then drop the second shoe. And the people underneath are going, oh, there's the first shoe. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Oh, there it is. Okay. You get an education here, too. Oh. I'm going to take it all off. Woo! Sweating. No hair and makeup person. We'll leave the hat on today. How's that sound? The hat that I designed based on a 1943 cap, like the 30s, 40s, that was adopted by the U.S. military in World War II. I just changed it a little bit. I added a few little extra details to it. All right. So, I should take it all off. I should take my shirt off for sure, because I got some criticism. I should block the light off here. I should put another light. I don't have any lighting. So, I'm going to read some comments. I did a video this week, several days ago, on the interview between Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan. And it was something, I watched it. I had all these things I wanted to talk about. And then, pardon me, I'm going to get some water. I left it over here. So, I did a quick video, and after I was done with the video, I realized there was stuff that I left out that I should have mentioned. And we'll get to some of that today. And then, since then, I watched quite a few more videos and interviews with Nick Fuentes, and what other people said about him, and clips that they've run of him saying certain things, and then what he says in interviews, and they're trying to goof on him. And I have a take on this that, excuse me, for some of you, it's going to be your moment for the day. Like, we knew that already, but I have to say it because I was learning new words. I can't recall any of them right now. I looked them up on the computer. Maybe we should just get this out here and see. This might help, because there's these terms. This is Dr. Phil on Piers Morgan. What a couple douchebags. All right. Well, incel is a word I learned that I was unaware of, that Nick would call himself. It's Nick, right? Nick Fuentes? And I realize I am one. But not, these AI definitions and other definitions are funny because they really point out the negative aspect of things, while some of it I think is positive. So I don't know, it's odd. And then there was another term, which I guess are his people, his followers, that come from this meme, this green meme thing. I can't think of the term. Maybe it'll come to me. And apparently Piers is upset because they've gone after him in the comments. I went after him in the comments. So, and I'm not a Nick guy. Like, I am now. Let me just say, for the record, I'm kind of a fan now. And after watching a bunch of interviews of him with other people, not knowing who Nick was or anything about him, and I'm kind of fascinated by this kid because he's 27. I'm trying to put all my thoughts. You guys know me. This is contemporaneous, I think is the word. It's all off the cuff. I'm unprepared. I'm just stream of thought here, stream of consciousness. And probably not the most professional way to do things, but it's okay because that's what I always do. And I think he does that. And it's obvious to me from seeing the clips on his shows that he's like me, he's talking to a camera. He's got a studio set up and he's just going off and he's having fun and he's making jokes and his people get it. Just like the people that have been watching my channel long enough get me. They get it. I would just caution the youth, the Nick fans out there of, like the criticism of older people. I get it. It's not a hot take there, people. All right. Like that's something that's been going on forever. I mean, back in the 60s, it was don't trust anyone over 30. There's always been these culture clashes with older people and younger people. The problem with the younger people is that you forget that all us older people used to be younger people. We've gone through all the catharsis that you are currently in the middle of. We know that our brains were at a certain level when we were in our 20s into our early 30s, and then we know that our brains changed as we got older and we experienced life, and we have more life experiences, which formulate your character. And so I kind of had this like underlying warning in that last video I did, which was a message not just to the youth, but everybody who is addicted to social media right now, and particular figureheads like listening to Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Piers Morgan or any of them. But also, the Judson Crowder, whatever the hell his first name is, Crowder, who I like. I used to like him when he was doing his man on the street thing. And what happens for me personally, and it probably happens for some of you here with me, eventually I get tired of listening to anybody. Like, I never listened to Rush. Once in a while, I would hear something he said. I was like, oh, I agree with him. But I can't listen to it. I certainly can't listen to Alex Jones just because of his tone all the time. I can't. That kind of energy is something I don't need in my head. So his style is such that it was a turnoff. So I get bored with people, and then certain styles turn me off. Which is unfortunate because a lot of the times the messaging is good. All right? If you agree with something, if you agree with everything anybody says, that's odd to me. I think that a normal person is going to hear some things being said by people that they just won't naturally agree with, and that would make sense. But I also think everybody who's doing what I'm doing right now misspeaks, says the wrong thing. I do this all the time. I say jokes all the time that just nobody understands what the hell I'm doing. And people take it the wrong way, and they take me too seriously, just like with the Trump thing. That's just how it is. With that being said, I went ahead and watched several more interviews with this Nick guy. I watched him talk with Andrew Tate, who's another guy I never listened to. Never listened to a word he said. Never watched any of his videos. Now, Nick's people pointed out in some of my comments here, like, oh, he's just talking about who he doesn't listen to. I'm not saying that because I didn't listen to him, it's because I don't agree with him. I just got better things to do. And I'm trying to explain to you people that there's more to life than sitting there listening to what other people have to say. It's good to pay attention. Now, I know more now about Nick's thing. Like, I get it. Like, he's a white nationalist Christian. He's a Catholic, which is a little bit different because he's adhering to the dogma of Catholicism. I mean, very strictly. He's still a virgin and going to wait till he gets married and everything, and that's his prerogative, and I'll pontificate on that as this video moves along here. Um, I've got a problem with religion, personally. I'm not a fan of it. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in God or Jesus. I believe Jesus walked the earth. I'm okay with him being the Son of God. I believe in God. A lot of Christians say they're one and the same. I get all that stuff. For those of you who don't know, because you haven't been here before or you haven't listened to me speak enough about my personal life, I was kicked out of Bible study as a kid. My mom brought me to a Catholic church at one time, and we hadn't been really raised Catholic. And when I was like 8 years old, she started taking me to church on Sundays at a Catholic church. And peace be with you. And afterwards, you go down in the basement with the other kids, and they all got their copies of the Bible, and they're just, the Bible study person's like, go to this passage, and I didn't even know how to navigate the Bible, so. And I picked up pretty quick. And the problem is, for me, I questioned everything that I was being told. Like, well, how do you know? Like, I'm reading the same thing we're all reading here, and you're telling me that's what I'm supposed to get from it. But when I read that, I get a different thing in my head. And it was too frustrating for the Bible study person. And then after only a few times of me doing that, one day, because afterwards all the kids walk outside, wait for their parents, and the Bible study person was there next to me. When my mom came to get me, the Bible study person told my mother, this is not for Michael, because, I questioned. I wasn't just a sponge taking it all in. So that's a thing, God is not religious. God doesn't favor one religion over another. Jesus wasn't a Christian. He had a philosophy that I agree with. And I agree with all his teachings, and it's the right way to live. And that's enough. It's enough. So I think that this life, first of all, I don't think it's the only one we have. I happen to be one of those weirdos that believe in reincarnation and all that. I think that some of us come here. If some of us, when we go someplace else. I don't believe you die. I don't believe any of us die. I believe you're the soul within you, and that never dies. You just move on to the next thing. Religion is convincing people that you're being judged here by your actions. I don't know that that's true. Could be. I think it's an interesting way to live, because I think the point of that is to be a good person and not run around murdering people and doing horrible things. So that's good. I think there's a lot of good in the Bible. I think the Bible is a history book. I think those things happen, but I think it's been interpreted wrong. We know it's been sanitized and changed, and it's not really, a lot of the words are not the exact meaning that they were when they were written. And this is all a subject. This subject I've discussed multiple times to different degrees on pertaining to different subjects that are current in my videos in the past. It's not what I want to really get into. I'm just saying that when you're a young person and you're making the choice to live that way, it is your choice to do so. I'm not going to judge you for doing that. I'm just going to point out that, you came here this time, you're having this current existence, and if you want to believe, because you have to understand, most people don't just come to it on their own. There's a lot of people that do. God talked to me and told me I need to do this, or I read the Bible and now I think this way, and that's totally fine, and I think it's good for a lot of people. I think a lot of people need that kind of guidance to be put on the right track. Whatever makes you a better human being, I'm all for it. I don't think you need it to be a good person, is all I'm saying. And I think that if you can apply common sense to life and be a good person and understand that innately we understand the difference. We're tabula rasa, but innately we know the difference between good and bad and evil and all those things, and just be a righteous person based on Jesus' teachings. That's fine. Or, get into Buddhism. I studied Buddhism for years back in the day. I've talked about that here before. We won't get into that right now. But because the thing is this is a gift, this life, and you're here. It's up to you to determine what you want to do with it. And I made my choices. And I think I've been here before, because I've got way too many crazy, weird memories that pop into my brain, especially when I'm sleeping, where I was here before doing things. And in this life, I made choices early on to be as free as possible. And that's how I'm living. And it comes with consequences, which I fully accept, and I blame nobody for any of the challenges I've had in my life. And as we know, I don't. I'm happy about the challenges I have in my life because I like who I am, and it makes you that person. So it's just odd when people live a very stringent life based on religion, and then they want to start telling other people what's right or wrong. That sort of thing bothers me because you can't go around thinking you're right about everything. You can, but it kind of makes you an asshole. Nobody wants to listen to you after a while. You become insufferable. So I just want to throw all that out there. Um, it's an interesting choice. Like I think it's funny. We'll get to the comments in a minute. I think it's funny that he has this negative thing with women, which okay, I kind of agree. Women can be a real pain in the ass, but that's coming from a guy that's in a couple weeks here, I'm going to be 59 years old. And then a few days after my birthday, I'll be 60 that year. So it's a weird time to have a birthday between Christmas and New Year's Eve. It just always has screwed with my brain. But my point there is that I've had decades and decades and decades of dealing with women. So my opinion on them is based on personal interactions I've had with hundreds of them. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Uh, and obviously they're not all bad, but all the good ones are taken, man. And then the ones that are good ones that are now kind of available, it's unfortunate because they have their own baggage. So when they get older, it's harder to deal with some of them. And I feel bad for a lot of women because, they've been screwed over. But then again, so have men. And, we got to tolerate a lot of crazy stuff. And so it's a thing. It's a thing. It's hard to meet a good partner that is your friend and you will always find physically attractive and always find funny, because you're going to have problems no matter what. It's how you deal with those issues and getting through them. And I speak to this from experience, knowing people who have been together for decades, and still together and still happy, for the most part, right? It seems like after you go through all the hard times, if you're still together, once you get to a certain age, you're actually happier together because you can look back on all the stuff that you went through and all the hard times that you stuck together through. And I think it makes the relationship even stronger. So I'm very happy to know people who are in that position right now. And I look up to that. I admire that. I think it's cool. But, it's a crazy time. Because we're getting dumber. So I understand his point of view, especially women in his age range right now. I can only imagine how difficult that must be to deal with. I was just watching, so I watched Piers Morgan a couple different things. So I watched the one he had on where he had Crowder, Milo, and the guy who wears the hat, Tim Pool. Milo I knew about because Milo was friends with Sabo. Now, I've mentioned Sabo in the last video, and I had a couple people like, who's Sabo? One guy in particular, who's Sabo? I said Sabo. I said what my working relationship was with him. I've known him for over a decade, and I pointed to the unsavory agents thing right there, which is usually in focus on the screen here. It's never in focus on my face, which I guess is a good thing because somebody else pointed out how horrible I look. I don't believe you're a Gen Xer. You look like shit. Well, thanks, bro. Thanks. First of all, not great lighting in here is one thing, and but if you saw me out in the sunlight with a nice little glisten of sweat on me with my shirt off, you'd realize I look like a god. I used to have a girlfriend a few years ago. She used to call me Zeus and a Greek god, and Semper Fine, she used to say. Those were the days. But now we know I'm, what was the term? Incel? Yeah, now that's what I am. So I don't know. I hope I remember how to do it the next time I get an opportunity. Jeez. So Sabo is a guy that he actually knows Nick Fuentes. He talked to Nick years ago, and I talked to Sabo about it the other day. So Sabo wrote this book, put this out. This is all of his, not all of it, but much of his street art. He has 20 of these books left. Go to unsavoryagents.com. Tell him Mike Z sent you. He'll autograph it, like he did for me here. And, you know, he actually put me in the book. I should have the page marked, because I am proud of this. All right, look at that, was easy. I wrote this. This is several paragraphs I wrote, and I'm in this upper photograph here. That was when Sabo was a big fan of Ted Cruz. This is 2015. So when he was putting his book together, he asked me to write something up, which I did. And I think I did a good job writing that. This was one of the big ones that we did together here. This was before Jeffrey Epstein was like a really, like, people knew what was going on even with him. And we changed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to Once Upon a Time in Pedowood. And that's what we would do. So I would climb these billboards, you know, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, no harness or anything. And we would change these billboards around. And Sabo is an ardent conservative, you know, and I'm trying to get to something here real quick. Just any image. They're all good. I have to be careful. Like, oh, this is good because there's something here that I did. So Gavin Newsom. And right here, that was my little idea. I'm so happy he did that. I said, you got to do Gavin Newsom as Cartman. Respect my authority. Oh, I took this down because it was on top of the book. If you guys want to understand the CIA and USAID and how government funding funds wars around the world and whatnot, this is a pretty good, nothing new here, people. This information has been out for a long time. You just have to be interested enough in it and look it up. At any rate, that's Sabo. So now you know who he is. And so Sabo was saying to me the other night that he thinks, or at least when he was around Nick at the time, and this is Sabo, you have to understand, he's my friend. But I don't agree with the way he thinks about everything, which is fine. But he thinks and said to me that Nick was surrounded by bad people or evil people. I don't know if that's true now, and he didn't pontificate on that much more. That's just his opinion. He's entitled to it, and he has more info to go on than I do, because I haven't met the man, nor the people around him. So I don't know. I'm basing everything I'm saying now on what I've seen in interviews over this past week. I just watched all these interviews. And then the interviews about the interviews. And I was just watching the one where, I guess it was right after he had him on, and Piers had Dr. Phil on, and I should have watched the rest of it before I started this, but I want to get this out of the way. Because Dr. Phil, who I know is kind of a douchebag, I did that show Monster House, and then Dr. Phil moved into a house on that street, just a couple doors down from the house that we worked on, and I stayed friends with those people for a number of years afterwards. Excuse me. Old people for no reason will suddenly just choke to death for no reason. I'm falling and I can't get up. I'm not going to die on camera, I promise you. Well, I can't make that promise. It could happen. I'm okay. So Dr. Phil moved into a house a couple doors down from those people and became a tyrant on the street and a tyrant with his neighbors and complaining about noise and all this stuff and the garbage cans. It just became a fucking douchebag. Moved in to a neighborhood where people had lived for quite some time and knew one another and were friends already. He moved in and acted like the douchebag that you would think he is. So, you know, it's a funny thing when you work in Hollywood, like I did a long time ago, and you're on set and you get to see what these people are like. And then on top of that, everybody in the movie business talks about the people, right? The rich and famous, the actors and everybody else. And so you get to know all this stuff about them, the personal stuff about them. Their sexuality, all these things that they're doing, because they're doing it while they're on set, right? They're in their little thing. So weird stuff would happen, and you get to know about it. But, you know, you got to kind of keep quiet about it if you want to keep working in the business. A lot of weird rumors. about a lot of these people. But then you see stuff too. At any rate, Dr. Phil was talking about, they were talking about Fuentes goofing on women, and Dr. Phil's like, yeah, it's silly, doesn't he understand that we have women in all these positions of power and industry and doctors, and doesn't he know that there's more women in college today? And I had to stop it, make a comment right there, because we know that the problem we're having right now, like the left is populated by educated, liberal, single females, usually with a bunch of cats. And they all have a negative opinion of men because the only men that are around them that will put up with their bullshit is beta males. That's it. And beta males don't represent us as men well. So they've got no respect for them. So it's just funny to me because Piers and Dr. Phil and these guys, they're beta males. The other thing that they have is an audience. And like they were on television, they were on network shows that later stopped, but because now we have the internet, they've got name recognition and a built-in audience. When they go on YouTube and start that, their followers eventually come over, and now they're able to make money on their own. But for them to do so, they've still got a crew. It might be a skeleton crew, but they've still got producers and maybe some writers and hangers-on possibly, and assistants, and all these people. They might have people that are reading things for them and finding clips for them, and all these things that these well-produced shows, which this is not, which is why I look like shit to a lot of you people, because I don't have the hair, makeup, and the lighting. Because I don't give a shit. Sabo gave me crap about that. He had multiple times. He's like, dude, you need a better camera, because you're too washed out, it doesn't look good. And I'm like, dude, if I cared that much, I'd be sucking dick in West Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that vain. I'm not that vain of a person. I address the comments like that because I think it's funny when people want to knock you on what your looks are, but I'd like to see what you look like. Or when somebody gives me shit in the comments, like there's some people that comment on every video, and thank you for that, by the way. It helps the algorithm, helps the channel. It means you're a real fan, and I get it. But sometimes there's a little pushback, which I can take, but I would prefer not to have to spend too much time in the comments going back and forth with people, because I got better things to do, But I have to right now. But the thing is, with those guys, they're not doing that. They're not reading their comments. They're not commenting in their comments. They can't. There's just too much volume there. What I'm getting at, though, is that they have to feed the beast, right? So they have to, like, for Piers, he didn't come off well in the interview, in my opinion, with Nick Fuentes. And I think Nick came off way better, and I think Nick gained way more adoration from the people who are already following him. And he gained new supporters, and people like myself who'd never watched anything he'd done before are like, oh, okay, I don't have a problem with this kid. And I call him a kid, even though he's 27, because when you're basically 60 years old, everybody under 30 is a child. And you also know that. That's kind of the truth brain-wise. Like, your brain isn't even still fully developed, and there's a lot to learn. And for lack, it's a hard thing to put. Like, I can't convince a young person of anything because they think they know it all. You know how I know? Because I was a young person once. And that's what you think. You're from 19 to 27 or so, you think you know it all. And every time you learn this new thing, it's this new thought in your head that made the gears turn, like, oh man, wow. And all of a sudden you wake up, you have these little sparks of inspiration and thought because you read something, Nietzsche or something, and whatever the fuck it was, you learned something political, you learned some piece of history that you weren't. It's way worse for you kids today because you weren't taught as much as even we were, and we weren't taught enough. I had to learn way more about history on my own after I got out of school. But for you guys, when you learn the true history versus the revisionist crap, if it was even taught, I don't know how much shit they're teaching in school anymore, but because it's all woke nonsense now, and it has been for a couple decades or more. But I know what it is. I know what that is. And I know when I'm talking to a young person who starts just trying to tell me something, Like they think I don't know it already. Shut the fuck up. I know it already. That's why to us, you're insufferable. And to you and your peers, we're, what, boomers or whatever. I had that one too with my age. When I was young, I can't recall an instance where we talked about the generations like boomers or Gen Xers or whatever. That wasn't really discussed. Baby boomer was a thing because that was the biggest group of people at the end of World War II. I guess, what is that, like 45 to 65? Is that what that is? I was born in 66, so people with me, when they bring it up, I put Gen Xer in the title of things from time to time because I think it might help get more views. That's all that is. It's not like I'm hanging on it. But I'll tell you, it was a good time to be around. And we had it easy. We had it, I mean, life was what it was. And I mean, I grew up on the street. I mean, let me tell you something. Because this is what gets me about this generation, the Nick Fuentes generation. At 27, now he's a well-known guy, and I'm sure he's making coin, but he's this hardcore Catholic and still a virgin and all that. Fine. Okay. In comparison to my life, right? We all compare everything to our own. Everything we say, it's our perspective. Our perspective is based upon the life that we've lived up until this point, right? All the experiences we've had. Well, I can tell you, I had way more life-affirming. It's a down pillow I'm sitting on. Experiences by the time I was 27. By the time I was 27, I'd already been on my own for 13 years. I've been living alone since I was 14. I'd already been in and out of the Marine Corps. I got out of the Marine Corps when I was 20. I didn't do my full 4 years. I got in a lot of trouble. That was when I was damaged in there. I was fucked over, and so when I came out, I was very cynical, and I led a life for a long time because I was unhappy with the way that stuff went down, and I was all alone in the world, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, and so I was self-destructive, and I lived a couple decades with self-destructive behavior and getting out. By the time I was 27, like I said, in and out of the service, been living on my own for 13 years, all kinds of jobs. I was working when I was a kid. We'll call that landscaping, all right, and washing cars and all that sort of thing. But I had jobs, regular jobs too, and I was working like a carny every summer when I was in high school, paying my own summer, my way through the summer, buying my own school clothes and everything, working skill games and wheels and the kiddie rides and all that stuff. And I managed a store my senior year, like opening and closing, hiring and firing people, doing the books, all that stuff. Went in the Marine Corps, was a security force Marine, so I became an infantry Marine first. Went through all the infantry school and all that training, and then became a security force Marine for a year, doing that nonstop training. Got out, and then like went nuts. Like I was a crazy person. I started building houses, doing home improvements, worked in cabinet shops. Again, by the time I was 27, I probably built a dozen or more homes from the ground up, and done a bunch of other stuff, and worked in cabinet shops, like I said, and learned multiple trades. I was a cabinet maker, did countertops. I could do footings and masonry work and pour concrete floors and do all that. Frame houses, put a roof on, all this, everything it takes to build a house. I could do all that stuff. I was already building furniture at that time. And then I went to college for a couple of years, when I was 23. And then I started working in the nightclub business. Then I got involved with the mob, and I did all that crazy stuff. And that was, and the whole stuff, it was crazy. I'm just saying that and this, again, I'm not proud of this. All right. I'm not bragging about it. But by the time I was 27, I already slept with hundreds of women already. I mean, there was days, 3 women in a day, and I don't think that's anything to brag about, but that used to happen to me. So I'm just saying, the man, and it's hard to even call myself a man, but I was. I remember when I was 23 and I went to college. We call it Hooper U. It's actually a good school. It's Ocean County College. Also, 27 today, in my opinion, is like 17 in 1985. Like, I think we were way more mature back then because of the experiences we had as young people on the street. We're all latchkey kids. We're all growing up on the streets. You weren't going home till the street lights came on. So we were fighting and fucking and having all kinds of things going on the street there that I think a lot of the young kids today just never had. You know, play dates and everything else, and the woke nonsense, and the no bullying, and we had bullies. All this stuff was happening. So I just think that we were better prepared for the way the world actually is than the younger generation that's out there now. And the younger generation listening to me say that isn't that you don't want to hear that, but it's a fact. It's a fucking fact. Now, I'm not saying we're better or worse or whatever. Things happen. Things are what they are. And some people ascribe a positive or a negative to that. That's you doing that, and that's fine. I think you can make a case that we were better off for it because, we can navigate things. But the other thing we learned how to do was we understood common sense. We didn't have to learn it because we were still taught it in school. We weren't being told what to think. It was coming in at that time. And in whatever it was, around 1990 or so, when I went to college, I remember I was 23. I felt like a man at 23 because I had already been in and out of the service. And again, by that time, I was living alone for 10 years and working and paying my own way and taking care of myself. And I was an accomplished person. And, when I got out of the service, I haven't really told this story much because it sounds like I'm making shit up, but I could back it up because I'm still friends with some of these people. I remember I was a little, when I got into physical, and I had a lot of fights. I had a lot of street fights, especially growing up. I got a lot of trouble, and I was a hoodlum. And I was just dangerous. So when somebody would get in my face, my move with that was I would grab you by the throat, step on your foot, and push you over and land on you, beat your head into the ground. And I was just cracking people's heads open, like blood, and they were out. That's a dangerous thing to do, but that's what I was doing. And other things. And in the Marines at that time, we didn't learn that there was no jiu-jitsu. It was like a taekwondo vibe, but it was all killing moves. You incapacitate the threat, move on to the next one. Let me get this guy, rip his throat out, or whatever you got to do to that guy because you got to end that quick because there's the next guy coming. And now you got to kill that guy. It wasn't about subduing people and because, being like doing police actions. The way that we're using the military today is not what we were being trained to do in the 80s. So in the early 80s. So when I got out, I had some bad things happen. And I decided to study martial arts to be less lethal. All right. So I went to this, I didn't know. I've got my patches and everything from there. I got a little sewing box right here. So I learned how to sew as a kid. We had to take home ec for 4 years. And I still have the sewing kit that my mom took me to buy in Patterson, New Jersey. Still got the remember the little ticker tape thing you'd make your name, the labeling things? I think in here, if we're lucky, I might still have, there's a bunch of patches in here. But I think I've got of course now I have to put all this crap away when I'm done. There's just a bunch of patches here, but forgive me. Just to prove to you. Gee whiz, man. There's just a bunch of stuff in here. Here it is. Here we go. Come do. That was it. So this was in Toms River, New Jersey. And I remember I went to a night, I took night classes because I worked during the daytime. And my first day in this class, I'm doing everything perfect. And the guy who ran the school, our sensei, walks up to me and goes, "How long you been training?" And I said, "Well, this is my first time." And he got mad at me because he thought I was bullshitting him. And his son, was like a 3rd-degree black belt or something at the time. He was in high school. he ended up teaching most of the night classes that I went to. And Charlie later was in the Ninja Turtle movies. He was like one of the Ninja Turtles. And Charlie Downing was his name. So after the first, I took it very seriously. I came home every night and worked on my katas. You know, I learned everything. I was a powerful guy. I used to do, 20 pull-ups with my legs out at 90 degrees. You know, I was climbing ropes with no legs. And sometimes with my legs out at 90 degrees, I could climb the ropes and do all these things. I used to do the ladder on the ceiling where I'd grab a rung and I'd pull with both hands and throw my body across, and I'd skip 1 to 2 rungs, no hands, and reach up and grab it again and go across the ladder that way. And after the first week, I was already sparring very well with everybody, and I knew everything I needed to know for the next belt. And I said, I'd like to test for the next belt. It was obvious to everybody there that I was advanced. And at that moment, he said, well, you got to wait a little longer before you test. We have this thing. But I also know that people are getting black belt in like a year or so. So I was like, okay. And I was unimpressed with a lot of the other belts as far as the people that had them. So what I did was I made a conscious choice to never test for a belt, and I just stayed a white belt. And I beat up everybody in the school. I beat the shit out of them. There was 2 guys that were black belts that were men, like in their 30s or 40s, and they were bigger than me. And those 2 guys would give me a harder time, but they did not beat me up. It was more of an even thing with those 2 guys. And so that's it. I just ended up sparring all the time. Now I learned great techniques. It was very good for me. A lot of wrist breaking things, and you had to break holds and whatnot, and how to deal with an attacker coming at you. And I learned more about the solar plexus. I mean, after that, it was great. I can't tell you how many times. Real world scenarios, being in parking lots, fights, nightclubs, where just one good shot to the solar plexus and it's over. The fight's over. You're on your knees gasping for air, and I'm on top of you going, "You're a fucking asshole." And I've got witnesses to this. People see it's still talked about. So my last day doing Taekwondo, I remember. I'm sure I told all this here before, but there was this guy that came in. He was in the Army, and he was home on leave, and I'd never sparred with him before. I never met him before. And it was that day, it was already, I guess Charlie was setting this up. And he thought it would be fun to have the Marine spar with the Army guy, you know. And I'm just a white belt still, and he was a green belt. And we're sparring. And I'm used to the ebb and flow of it. So typically when you're sparring, this guy will come at you and you do a lot of defense stuff, you know, and then you come at him and he does his defense stuff. It's just his ebb and flow, and you're just sparring. But this guy is really trying to hurt me. And he hit me pretty hard a couple times. And I was deflecting stuff. Nothing was really landing. But the blocks where I was like, this motherfucker ain't holding back. I'm like, all right. And he pissed me off. And with my left foot, I kicked him right in the side of his head and knocked him off his feet into the mirror. I hit him pretty good. And Charlie jumps up, breaks it up. He goes, that's it. We're done for tonight, you know. And he takes me outside and he has this conversation with me. He says, Mike, I've been watching you for months and, you know, it's fine. You know, you advanced here and I know you don't want to test for the belt and everything. He says to me, Taekwondo is not for you. He says, you should really get into kickboxing. He's like, I think you should seriously do that. And this was before, UFC might have been starting to happen because this would have been in 87. And but I wasn't watching it. I'd watch a boxing match once in a while. But I was working at that time. I was working in nightclubs and everything, and I was really too busy fucking. I was doing a lot of fucking. I could be upset with women for liking me because I missed out on a lot of stuff in life because I was too busy fucking. as much as I learned, as many trades as I had by the time I was 27, I knew so many different jobs. I was able to make a living. There's so many other things I could have been better at if I wasn't being distracted by sex, and it wasn't like, it's hard to look back and be honest with yourself about it, because obviously I wanted to fuck. I mean, I wanted to do it. That's what we all want to do. And the women wanted to do it back then too. That was a thing. And I was living in a tourist town where girls were coming down. I mean, when you were 14 years old, there was, 13, 14-year-old girls, 15-year-old girls. You're the same age as them. They're home. They're there with their parents. They're sneaking out at night and they're partying with the local kids, and they want to, they're, for them, it's, I know it sounds ridiculous now and crazy, but they, they want, at that time, that's what the mindset was. You wanted to have that experience. And it was safer for them to have that experience in a strange town with a stranger than it was for them to do it at home in their little town where everybody would know about it. Like, it made sense. So you were just, like, sometimes multiple times in a day. It was insane, especially by the time you were 15 and 16 and 17 years old. It was wild. And now, there's definitely negatives to that. I mean, a lot of girls were getting pregnant. I never, as far as I know, I never got anybody pregnant. But I always, I don't want to get all into this, the personal aspect of that. But the point is that did happen. A lot of girls were having abortions at the time. You guys know my story with that, because when I got a car, and I still feel guilty about this, but a girl asked me to take her friend to get one, and then I ended up being the guy that took a lot of girls to get that. So I have a very strong opinion on that because I was there and I witnessed it, and who they were when they went in there and who they were when they came out, and it's not good, and I don't agree with it at all, and they're not happy about it, and I've talked to some of them over the years since then, and they look at it as a mistake. So there's that. And then there's the other stuff that happens. Like, we were drinking and doing drugs and all that stuff, and that led to a lot of crazy stuff. Now, most of it led to experiences that didn't hurt us that much down the road and probably made us better because we knew what that experience was like. And when you go through it, you get punished, right? Because that's the way it was back then, not like today where people aren't getting in trouble for doing things. Back then, when you did the wrong thing, you got in trouble for it. And they made it rough on you, so you didn't do it again. You learned that there was consequences for your actions. And worse still were the consequences that were as serious as it gets. Death, or maiming, people in wheelchairs, right? Because I had friends that died. Accidents, cars, drunk driving, all those things. Just doing dumb things. And so you grow up with that. And, life was, and if you really think about it, because I bring this up a lot, I'm big on history and people don't understand. You go back 200-300 years, you were considered in some ways an adult when you were 13, 14 years old. I mean, there was people being married at 12, 13, 14 years old. Life for the poor didn't last long. I mean, there was always a group of people that lived to old age, 70s and 80s or older. We know that, right? Aristotle, Plato, guys with beards. We have their busts. We can see paintings of people later and, later generations. We know that people lived to old age, but those were people that had better lives, right? They had money. They can afford better food. They lived safer. The rest of the people, they were getting kicked in the head by horses, falling off horses, getting eaten by wild animals, getting murdered, killed by one another. I mean, the world has always been a dangerous place. It's the safest it is now. As crazy as that might sound to some of you. My whole point of this is just, I feel like our generation, the Gen Xers, was like the last of the comeuppance, like when you were young and learning all this stuff. And then it just got softer and softer and softer. We know this old adage, right? Tough times bring about tough people. Tough people bring about good times. Good times result in soft people. And soft people bring about hard times. right? And it's like this 80-year cycle that keeps repeating itself. Well, we've had a lot of soft. There's a lot of soft happening. And that scares me because that's why we have rough times right now, because we've been too soft for too long. And we're still in the soft phase. And so when I see these young people, a Nick Fuentes, who's 27, who I don't think had super hard times, and there's a whole group of that, that makes me nervous, because what are you basing your opinions on? You haven't had the experiences that we had. That's all I'm saying. And that's a fact. I'm generalizing. Obviously, some of you had hard times. Maybe you grew up with a single parent, all that sort of thing. I get it. I'm not attacking you, but just don't be so fucking sensitive, man. Like, just because you hear something that you don't like. Again, I supported Nick in that video, and I was getting some weird comments. Let's quickly... Some of these are kind of long. Seems like Fuentes is taking a metaphysical hammer to smash all the eggshells we've been forced to walk on. Love it. He's using hyperbole to say all the things we are not supposed to say. What's scary to me is that he's been debanked, put on the no-fly list, and banned from all major platforms. I thought this was a free country. What next? Send him to the gulag. This is by Brian's Welding. Great comment, man. I mean, that's so... I was unaware of all those things that happened to him. Interesting. 100% right. I say this all the time here. If you're a young person, you're a Nick fan, it's your first time watching me, I say all the same things Nick has been saying. It's like, it's not, to me, it's nothing new. And the eggshell thing is something I bring up all the time. Fuck these people. I am not going to go through this world walking on eggshells, being concerned about what hurting somebody else's feelings. Your feelings are your personal issue. Your feelings are not my business. What you think of me, not my business. All right? And as far as being deplatformed and everything, I got to tell you, man, when I'm not getting very far. We're almost an hour in already, and I haven't even gotten anything I wanted to talk about. I guess I was just pointing out the difference between what it was like when I was that age compared to now. Apologies. But when the COVID stuff, well, I was a political wonk. I was very into this and was following it for a long time. And then, those Obama years were something. And I talked about it at the time. And when Trump came in, that was good. But when COVID happened, I saw that as a plan. I keep calling it the plandemic. And I did videos on that. And that's when I learned what shadow banning was. Because even though I'm nobody, my videos became shadow banned. And when I first learned it was on Instagram, and I did a video, and I mentioned how it was based on Greta Thunberg, right? Because she was a kid at the time, and they're listening to her. Stupid. And my point was, children don't know anything other than what they've been told. This is my problem with young people today. You're listening to what other people say. Fortunately, you're reading history and you're getting accurate history. Like, you're curious enough to learn where all this stuff has come from. You're more politically and historically astute, many of you, than we were at that time, because we were too busy fucking. We were too busy fucking, fighting, learning a trade, making our way through the world, making money, figuring that out. You guys somehow have it easier where you could spend all this time in front of a computer and do all this research now. And I'm glad you're doing it, because we need it. But I'm just saying. So I did this video, and it had the next day. For me, it's a big deal. I'm not some hot chick with big tits wearing a bikini where I have 100,000 viewers. I've got 14,000 subscribers here, so it's not a big deal. Back then, it was even less, obviously. And I was on Instagram, and I did this video, and it had 400 views within less than 24 hours. Oh, that's doing pretty good. But I had forgotten to do hashtag Greta Thunberg. And I did that. The next day I added that. And then the next morning I got up and I had 0 views. What does that tell you? You understand? And I noticed that was happening on my YouTube as well. Like nobody was watching. To this day, if you go back to 2019, 2020, 2021, there's videos on my YouTube channel that have like 46 views. So something was happening there. And we know that on Facebook, we know this is all true because it's all been admitted to. Facebook was taking stuff down and you were being banned. That you weren't, these platforms weren't allowing people to see your content. And I still get spanked on here from time to time. I'm holding out on YouTube because you have to. You have to make the fight. It's why I'm still in Los Angeles. Nick is the future. Fuentes is a breath of fresh air. Dude is one of the youngest Gen Xers. Your apathetic attitude is why boomers are still running the show. At some point, we were supposed to grow out of the whatever attitude. That's by this guy, K. Borak. Am I supposed to care about everything? This is the point I was trying to make in the beginning of the video. You know, apathy has its place, man. You are the most important person in your life, unless you get married and you have kids. Then your children and that relationship becomes the most important thing in your life, and that's what matters. And it's good that people care. If you don't take an interest in politics, politics will surely take an interest in you. And that's why I'm glad that Nick Fuentes is out there. I'm glad there's other people of his ilk. I think it's important what he's doing. He's a white nationalist, and I don't have a problem with that either. And this thing about racism, which is something that I wanted to talk about because I left it out of the last video, because he's like, yeah, I'm a racist, but you know, he doesn't hate these other people, but it's interesting, and this point has been made for so long. It's like if a bunch of white people get together and make a group, that's racist. But black people could do that. Asian people could do that. Jews do that. There's all these different groups that get together based on their similarities. Oftentimes it's based on race. But for some reason, if you're white and you're a Christian, you're automatically a racist. Like, that's fucking stupid because all those other groups have their problems too. And I don't know if you've got family in Europe. I mean, I'm lucky in a weird way. Like, my dad came here on a boat, you know, after surviving. And you guys know the story. The Greek Civil War and World War II and all that, and what socialism/communism did, and all the murdering that went on, and his people and his family being murdered and cut up into pieces and left in front of his house, and all that crazy shit. And so to grow up with a father that wasn't born here, and to hear all those stories, and this is a guy that grew up without indoor plumbing and no electricity, you know, war-torn Europe, and then to live here, and him being proud of this and everything. It just makes you realize, you know. So my apathy of being like, I don't give a shit about what people are saying is because I've seen it already. I've heard it all already. This is nothing new. This whole thing, this is what's happening now is what was happening in like the 80s with shock jock television, right? With Geraldo Rivera and Howard Stern and all this stuff. It's the same kind of stuff. Now, they weren't overtly political at that time. It was a distraction from that so that people in power can still fuck us over. Keep them distracted. Here's the circus, you know. They're upset now. And I wanted to touch on that. Like the thing about Piers Morgan and even Crowder and all these people is like they all have the beast that they have to feed because they have to keep coming out with content. They have to keep saying controversial things. They have to keep having controversial people on there because, you know, what is it? What's the old saying? You know, you know what I mean. Any news is good news. It's not the word, news is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. If you're out there in the public, then they hear your name, then people know who you are, and then these people know how to monetize that and turn it into something. I haven't figured that out yet. But I'm not here for money. I don't know why I'm here. I'm compelled. I mean, literally, I'm praying and I have these things and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing the right thing by speaking my mind here. That's what this is about. But I want you to understand, yes, hey man, pay attention to some of this. But at the same time, you've got to not listen to everything. You just can't because you're going to become this miserable person if your entire world revolves around this shit. Find a couple voices you like, watch them once in a while, but get outside, man, and go for a hike. Do something else. Watch a movie. If you want to be an activist for this and participate in it, that's a good thing, you know. And I do support what I'm glad that Nick is there doing what he's doing. I'm just saying it's hard for a guy that's my age, has had all the experiences that I've had and lived the life that I've had. I don't need to listen to Nick Fuentes, is all I'm saying. And when I have listened to him, I'm already agreeing with him. So I don't need to sit there and listen to somebody say a bunch of shit that I already agree with. I'm already on board, man. Already on board. So that's all. I'm actually one of you. And I'll tell you this too, for you young people, because I'm not used to getting shit from young people. Normally, what I'm getting from young people is, it makes me a little weird. It's a little uncomfortable, I suppose, but I get more like adoration and respect from young people. I'm a hustler. I'm an artist for a living, so I design and build cool shit. And one of the things that I do a lot of different stuff. I'm a craftsman. And one of the things I do is I build these vintage bicycles. And from time to time I sell them. And a lot of the guys that have bought my bikes have been young guys. And they're into the whole, the history of the, BMX and the clunkers. That the clunker was a bike that you had to build back in the day before mountain bikes existed. And I'm very good at what I do. And I build like kind of period correct tribute clunkers. And so these young guys will come to the shop and they'll buy the bike and we start talking. And next thing you know, they start coming over and they want to talk to me more because I'm fun and I'm funny and I treat them with respect and they're gaining life knowledge from an older person that's cool to them. And that's how you learn. And when I was young, I was lucky because I was around, and I was around a lot of guys from my dad and whatnot. A lot of the guys that I knew, like my friends' parents, a lot of those guys were war fighters. I mean, they were hardcore motherfuckers. Yeah, tough dudes, men, men doing man shit, So that's how you learn how to be a man, is by being around men. And I know that that's a weird, some idiot's going to, well, you think that's manly? There's nothing manly about being a tough guy, Try raising a family. I agree with you. I agree with you. But I think that beta males raising a family are running the risk of raising pussies. That's all I'm saying. So, and that's what I see. And that's what I run into. I run into a lot of guys who their dad was a pussy. And they see me as not a pussy. So when they talk to me and I'm telling them like all this stuff, and I'm not encouraging them to just willy-nilly go out and have a bunch of sex or anything. I tell them not to do that. I tell them they're better off if they can find one girl. I try to instill some values in them. But I tell them stories, and I explain life, and I hit them with reality. And it's important. And I had that. That's what I had when I was young. I was able to, there was men around that would talk to me like a man and explain things the way they saw it. And I didn't know a lot of pussies growing up. So I think I was lucky that way. It's a thing. You have to be a good example. You might say, you're a terrible person. Listen to you. You're saying this, you're saying that. A lot of what I'm saying, I'm also saying on purpose to be funny. Just like Fuentes does. So the grief I'm getting for doing that is the same grief he gets for saying the things that he's said. It's just silly. My point of this whole thing is Piers Morgan, all these guys, they're feeding the beast that they need to support them, to have what they have, to keep that going, to keep that money coming in. You can't take it that seriously. If you're going to watch all that stuff, it's a soap opera. You're like my mother. You're like all our moms 40 years ago that were sitting around, 40, 50 years ago, sitting watching soap operas all day. That's all this is another soap opera. Candace Owens, the shit she's saying, she's out of her fucking mind. I mean, if you look at how she's living and who she married and everything else, and Sabo's been saying it for a long time, and I haven't really studied it too much. I have looked a little bit into it. She does seem like a grifter. I don't trust her. And so there's just all, they're all saying these crazy things, and it's all about getting more notoriety and more people to view their stuff, because every time you click on their stuff, they're making money. And that's what it's about. So I'm just saying, find some voices that make you feel comfortable and watch them from time to time, but be careful about watching all of it all the time. And then, like, I spent, I don't even know how many hours. Like, I'm more into this whole ancient astronaut thing and the UFO, UAP thing that's going on right now. And I know it sounds crazy, but I think in my lifetime, and I think soon, we're going to be out there looking at the sky and there's going to be things up there and it's going to be wild. And I probably just lost a bunch of people by saying that, but I think it's happening. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure I've been wrong about a lot of things in my life. I know I have been. I don't mind being wrong. If you're hung up on trying to be right about everything, you're going to run into problems and you're going to be disappointed and you're going to disappoint yourself. No expectations, no disappointments. So be as righteous as you can be as honest as you can be, which you should be honest about everything. You shouldn't be embarrassed about anything. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Even if you got one of those little tiny dicks, I feel bad for you if that's what you got, but own it, man. Figure out some other way to deal with that. Don't be too embarrassed about anything in life because there's always somebody else that's got it worse off than you, and we're not all that different. Humans throughout history have pretty much all wanted the same thing. But we have to discuss things. And there's nothing wrong with discussing race. There should be no words off limits. There should be no topics off limits. When somebody says something like, when I talk about the Hitler thing, and I know what he was trying to say is that the German military and the uniforms, that was cool. Hitler himself wasn't cool. I heard what he was saying about Stalin. It's fascinating. I understand what he means by that. But he also clarifies by, of course it's not good that he killed millions of people, of course. This game that the people who come at me for words or a phrase I've said, or they come after him, they're jealous or there's an agenda to take you down because they don't like you, they don't agree with you, and they don't want other people to listen to you, so they're going to marginalize you. That's what's going on there for whatever purpose. And it's happening to him because they're scared of him. I'm scared for him, right? Because in my day, Martin Luther King was on my brain before I started this video because when I grew up, they drilled into our head every year, it's not about the color of your skin, it's about the content of your character. It's about who you are as a person. And people like Martin Luther King that had a message like that, he had to be taken out. I don't think he had to be taken out. It's a shame. But same thing with the Kennedys. Same thing with John Lennon. These people that get assassinated are people that scares the people running the show. And because of power. And that's the thing with Nick. That's why Charlie was killed. And they start by trying to deplatform you and do all these things. And then eventually somebody gets pissed off enough to where they just take you out. By the way, you guys know the 180-pound lesbian. If you don't know, I was getting multiple threats, email threats, by a moron whose name was in their email. Stupid. Threatening to beat me up because I made a joke that she took seriously. And just so you guys know, I get threats all the time. It hasn't happened in probably a couple months, but for a long time, and it'll happen again, I get emails or personal notes, sometimes in the comments, but usually it's a personal email or like a message on Messenger on Facebook or something. Sometimes it's Instagram, whatever. I've had some weird phone calls, personal emails, where people are threatening me. I'm going to find you. I know where you are. You don't deserve to live. I get shit like that. If it's more than once from the same person, I'll do a video about it. I'll make them famous on here. Most of the time I just delete it and forget about it because I've learned in life that the people who do this are pussies. They're not actually going to do anything about it. And the person who's going to come at you, there's not much you can do about it other than be prepared, situational awareness, which is what Nick's talking about when he's talking about Applebee's. His dad didn't want me to go to Applebee's. Look at what's going on. How many videos, if you haven't seen videos at fast food places where it's 99.9% black people, and obviously it's not all black people. I don't think all black people are bad. But this is a thing that's happened. There's these brawls that break out and they act like fucking animals, man. And it's ridiculous. Or 30 black kids go into a store, break everything up, steal a bunch of shit and run out of there. This is happening. This isn't fantasy. We're seeing it happen. When I was young, I had black kids I was friends with, I went to school with, and we all spoke the same. We all had the same stuff. We all, Ebonics didn't exist. Rap music didn't exist. They had soul music, which I fucking love to this day still. Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Sam and Dave. It's not what I want to talk about, so it's not in the forefront of my brain. But I grew up with that stuff, and I fucking love all of it. And I love the blues, and I love jazz, and that's what it was. And rap hit, and then rap culture hit, and there's white people producing a lot of this shit, like putting it out there at first, and that created a new world that wasn't real. I mean, this things happened on the street for sure, but what was happening in the black community on the streets back then was happening in the Puerto Rican community. It was happening in Hispanic communities. It was still happening in white communities. There was always poor people, like I grew up. There was criminals and scumbags of every color and race out there on the streets. And in the little communities, that stuff was happening. But that took over. And it became a thing. And it made money. And because it made money, it just kept perpetuating itself to the point where, like, that's not black culture. That was manufactured. And now they're living up to it. And then combined with what the Democrats did with the whole social welfare program, where, like, in order for you to get the maximum, keep having kids and don't have a man in the house that is providing anything, that's the way you can get the max. And now that's become generational. So you have people living under the same roof for generations getting welfare, having more kids without a man in the house. Kids, there's no man for the disciplines, relying on the woman. And the woman's just a baby factory, so they can keep getting. It's crazy, but that's what's been happening. When I say this, I'm not talking about everybody. When I was a kid, I had to learn this as life went on, because when I was a kid, I didn't see racism. I know you're going to think that's ridiculous. Well, back then it was racist. What are you talking about? Well, back then I was in class with black kids and Puerto Rican kids. And when I went home and turned on the television, there was black TV shows and black actors on everything, and black people in movies and black people in sports. I know they had to fight for that. I understand that. But I'm just saying, when I was young, they were already out there. I looked up to a bunch of black people. I was a huge Eddie Murphy fan. When he came on the scene, I was like, holy, I wrote a paper on Eddie Murphy when I was in 8th grade. I idolized him. He was hysterical. So I grew up with that. Just, to me, I didn't care what color anybody was. If you made me laugh, if I thought you were smart, if you touched me in some way, don't touch me in that way. My dad always told me, if another man ever touches you, you punch him right in the mouth. I didn't have a problem with any of this. It was when this new thing happened with rap culture and this whole thing, and then it just became this thing. And the Ebonics, and allowing people of color to just get by in school. And now they're just dumping them out there where they're graduating high school and college, and they still can't read? How is that even possible? How does that happen? Because of guilt? Because of white liberal guilt? What the fuck, man? You fucked it up. Nobody should be allowed to go through that process through school and not be able to read. It's ridiculous what has happened. So that's what he's talking about. And he's just not getting to the point the way I think I am right now. So at any rate, just to sum this up, I'm a fan now of the guy. I mean, am I going to like everything he says? Probably not. But I don't care. There's my apathy kicking in. Don't give a fuck. Don't care if you agree with me. But I think it's fun to read comments where people are like, I agree with you 100%. That's cool. Appreciate it. Appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. Like and share the video. There's a thing where you can bump the video. There's a term for it. When you first time you watch it, there's like a little button under the video now where you can kind of promote the video somehow. So I appreciate when you guys do that. And I appreciate you all for being here. And have a Merry Christmas. It's coming up. I got some presents here. I got a present the other day from Pat. Pat and the cat sent me a little box of clean out his junk drawer. Dude, don't send me candy. Stop sending me candy, people. He sent me a whole thing of Reese's Christmas trees. Reese's peanut butter cup thing is Christmas trees. You know how long that lasted? About 40 minutes. I made myself sick to my stomach. I have no self-control. Don't send me junk food. Please, for the love of Pete, don't send me any garbage food. Please. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. But if it's there, I'll friggin' eat it. Stop with that. That's it. I might put this out today on Saturday. I don't know what I'm going to do. But you guys have a great day. Be kind to one another. And, I might follow through with this some more. I might watch some more of this and have more things to say about it. I think it is fascinating. I think I should know more. I was going to touch on this earlier. I just didn't say it. After the pandemic and then that 2020 election that was, in my opinion, was stolen, that's when apathy for me kicked in its purest form, and I just stopped watching the news and giving a fuck about anything anymore. So during those last 4 years with Biden, that was rough. But I paid attention enough, and then when Trump started making that comeback, I couldn't believe it. And then when he was getting stronger, and then I knew, oh wait, he's got a chance. There was a resurgence within me, which made me feel good. And I also want to point something else out here. So much for signing off. Patriotism is a good thing. Nationalism is a good thing. You don't have a country without it. And our country was flooded by people from different parts of the world that they didn't have consistency in their own governments and whatnot. And a lot of people came here with questionable morals, and not all of them, obviously. But you can't allow that to happen. And we have all kinds of problems because of it. And that was done on purpose, because the left knows that their ideas are not good enough to sustain a movement to where they can sustain power. So they had to get these bodies in here. And I've told you guys how this works in the past. It's the 3/5 clause plan. Because that's the reason. The 3/5 clause was put in the Constitution not as a racist thing. That was put in there for the purposes of enumeration, because in the South, slave owners were counting slaves, which at the time outnumbered free citizens, so that they wouldn't relinquish power in Washington, because the Industrial Revolution hadn't happened yet. They needed to have these people picking the cotton and the tobacco and everything else. So the people in the North said, no, you can't do that. They're not even free people. We'll allow you to count each one as 3/5 as a whole for the purposes of enumeration. So that, because you are still taking care of those people. They're all being housed and fed and clothed and all these things. So, but that's what the 3/5 clause was about. And that's what the left did then. That's what the left is doing now. It's just they bring the bodies in, and then they're trying to count those bodies. That's what gerrymandering has always been about. It's always been the left that's been the beneficiary of bizarre gerrymandering going back a couple generations now. That's reality. That's what they've been doing. And I don't think we've had real fair elections for a long time, especially in California. And so that's what was going on with that. So again, I support him and what he's talking about when it comes to that stuff. It's just that he has a way of saying it, and he can be a little pompous for a 27-year-old, and that's normal because he's a 27-year-old. You're very cocky when you're that old, when you're that young, when you're that age. I get it. You know how I get it? Because I was that. All right? Look, you live to be my age. You live the life I have lived. You earn every wrinkle on your face like I have, and then you can give me some shit. Until then, shut up. The rest of you, have a nice day. Remember to be kind to one another. Do somebody a nicety. Do somebody a favor. Give somebody a compliment. All right? And just be kind. As kind as you can be. And I'll catch you in the next one.